Yo, it's DaBLackKing and welcome back. Welcome back to DaBLackKing Plays Final Fantasy 7. See that? It's raining. It's gonna rain all the way up till tomorrow. Jesus. Anyway, welcome back to DaBLackKing Plays Final Fantasy 7. Wow, no pollen. I can't even hardly tell that there's pollen in the air. I mean, I could tell about pollen, and I only like pollen, but I mean like somehow or another, it floats to areas that I don't even know about. So anyway, running, very poor golf, very poor. Driving difficulty, wet, very funny. Wow. Anyway, that's about that for that. And, yeah. So, I'll be right back, and I'll meet you in the game. We're back into the game. So we're actually in Gold Sorcerer area. And there's a certain character. You already may have met him. But what we're going to do is we're going to go over him as soon as we go and get him. For certain reasons that I don't think I actually really covered during the actual LP. I know, I could wait till later and do this. But it's very good to do this now because what I can do is I can go back with this character. I don't know how far I can go, obviously, and do a few things with him. And things are not really with him. Actually, I don't have to have him in my party. I just take the material he has and use it. Which means, yes, I'll have to give up something for him. But either way, he's not an optional character. Let's do this. I recommend listening to their story, but I'm not going to do it right now. I'll do that off screen. For now, let's focus on what they have. By selections. They have Transform. They have Maiden's Kiss. Ooh, we don't have any of those. Let's get those. And of course, you know my allowed amount. I mean, I could go up to maximum, but there's also a reason in case I can steal them. I know that's not really a good thing in real life. But see, that's real life. This is a game. There's a difference. Plus, they're not going to do anything with them anyway. So, let's see here. 5, 6, 7, 8. What do you guys got there? Okay, so. Okay, so my weapons, blah, blah, blah. Myself trade. Carbon Bangle. Well, we've already gotten any of those. Force Stealer. I actually shouldn't be buying 99 of these in case I could steal them too. But if I ever come across enemies that have them, you know, because sometimes it may take a while for me to steal it, but if I do know, I can always just sell off one and then bring it back up. But either way, I'm just going to do the maximum of that. Yep, okay. We have like 6 characters. We're about to gain one more. Let's say something. Anything will do. I don't remember ever doing that. But anyway, buy, sell, trade. Okay. 87. 88. 98. 85. 86. 87. 88. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to sell some Phoenix Downs because I don't need this many. Let's see, 3. because I can also steal them, or they get a little. And there's also the fact of when they drop, it's just like, you know. All right, I'll be right back. Now at this point, we could do this. We could wait till after we get done with the story, or we can go and do it then. Because at this point, what you want to do, let's say you want to have a certain deal. Well, what you would do is you would take out Tifa, or Tifa as they're calling her, anyway. Or if you want your fee for the event that's going to come up, I could have sworn it was right away, but it never is. So, no. I just remember coming in here and there was something else. But apparently it happens in a certain way that I didn't know about. But anyway, what you would do at this point is, well, you know, you don't actually have to have her with you. But what's going to happen is everybody's going to split up again. Once we get to the Gold Sorcerer. And by everybody, I mean, at that point, we'll only have 2 party members. So you can either take her, or her. Depends on who you want to be with for the events. Although it means not much of anything right now because you can't hardly get any GP right now, which is what you need to the entire Gold Sorcerer. So, what generally tends to happen for me is I wind up with her, even though I don't choose her. As you can't really get anything with Barrett. You can actually just take him on a ride, but I've seen people actually get dialogue from him, but it's crazy. But anyway, you can either choose Nanaki. Well, I don't remember if you can or not, but anyway, you have a choice between these 3 girls, lovely ladies. Anyway, later. Now, if you pay attention to here, Barrett there does not have a machine gun arm. And then we're about to get to introduce to someone that we're going to meet up again with. And that, yeah, not dying. They already spoiled it for you. But anyway. He doesn't even have a gun arm yet. The difference is though, they have it on different opposite sides of each other. But they still have gun arms. One of them's a bad guy, one of them's a good guy. Even though one of them seems to be a bad guy anyway. Because he's doing terrorist acts. I shouldn't say that word. But if you get the idea against the Shinra. A company that is involved against terrorist acts of their own. You know, that otherwise provide... brings up the whole idea of the history of whether or not there should be a group. And yes, there eventually does against people like that. Especially when they terrorize people and try to put fear into people's hearts. And scare them. Avalanche was created on this combination just so that people like that wouldn't exist. And then you wonder why in Advent Children, Cloud was like, you know, no, I don't want to help you build your company because he's afraid things they just don't want things to go back to the way they were. Because with the fact of Avalanche didn't really stop it for good. At least not in the beginning. But they were able to stop it for good with the help of Weapon, even though the Weapon was not intending to stop Shinra. Weapon's thing was to protect the Northern Cavern, not necessarily to protect Sephiroth, as some people may believe, which is a bunch of crap, but anyway, so Northern Cavern, there's been so many stories as well, but the true purpose of Weapon is to actually protect the Northern Cavern. There are so many different kinds of weapons, but they're not there to protect the Northern Cavern. They're just there as optional beings that were taken out in the remake. The remake is a whole different story. The remake still has a lot of cool things to it and all kinds of things. In this video, in this time period of the entire game, we don't even know if they're going to rehash the past, if you know what I'm talking about. Basically, we won't know if they're going to show this scene or not, because so far they've also said that it's only going to be focused on Midgar for Disc 1. So, which is going to suck because Midgar wasn't even around for that long. If you remember correctly, if you've ever played Final Fantasy VII, you ought to know that in Midgar, there's not much to do. You don't even hardly explore. And it does kind of remind you, if you pay attention to the graphics of the true remake, the one that's coming out in 2020, even though they've already released a version of it to where people can play it, but I'm guessing it's only in Japanese. But anyway, if you want the true full version of the English, you'll have to wait till 2020 of this year. I think it's going to be out tomorrow. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, with the remake, it reminds me, or you, if you've ever actually played Final Fantasy XII. Final Fantasy XII consists of different characters, different things, but in this one instance where they're actually in a city, where they walk around, and there's actually a place that you may not always remember how to get to. I don't mean like everybody who's played the game, obviously, but I mean a lot of people that like me, because I don't always have to remember how to get there, but there's like just one district in there, because you start out in a city. Well, actually, because we don't count the point of his brother, Vaughn's brother. Vaughn is actually the lead character, despite what people may think. Even though that in this game, it's like Final Fantasy X, where you can switch out the characters. Titus is not the main lead character. And the reason why Vaughn is the main lead character, because it ends with Vaughn getting his own doggone airship. I know because I played the game myself. I've beaten the damn game. It was not easy to beat it. I've never encountered not one game that's been easy enough to beat. Unless, of course, you count Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. But anyway, I beat that game so many ages ago. And in the end, even though that they show pictures of what's his name having babies with Fran, which is stupid as hell, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. That's just my personal opinion, and take it how it is. I don't give a damn. It's not like they're doing it or anything, because that's not very appropriate. But either way, I still don't see it appropriate. Anyway, if you've ever played that game, you'll know the reference when you see Final Fantasy VII. Because otherwise, that and the fact that they're actually showing a bit of more about the city because of Advent Children. There's also that as well, because when Advent Children came into this story, line, they actually had more to show of Midgar. And it was after the fall and ruin or collapse of Shinra. When Shinra was completely destroyed, and we all thought all the inhabitants of Shinra was gone, yeah, you know, Midgar was still around. But the difference is with Midgar is that we see old buildings and stuff like that are around, and Tipa's heaven, seventh heaven, we don't know if they revived it or what. All we know is for the fact that they actually went back and did some things in the old district, or the older times, I mean. You know. And they did use the church most of the time. And not all Final Fantasy games actually have the church. Which I would say would be a good thing, because technically, I never really thought about this either, but yeah, it's kind of anti-churchic, if you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know, then you ought to be paying attention to folklore or the Final Fantasy franchise series from all the way from the beginning to end. Because they're not exactly all for the sake. Neither is the bad guys. As if they were, they would be using peace and talks and all kinds of stuff. Nobody does that. So, in the course of the actions of what the events happen to lead up to are not what you think they are. You see, Barret and Dyne are a unique pair. We don't even know if Dyne's going to be back in Final Fantasy VII, the true remake, or not. We do know that we have confirmation that Barret's going to be there. We have confirmation of the original Avalanche members. That being consisting of Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. They will be there. I don't know if they're going to die or not, because if you've ever actually played the original game, they do die. It sucks, but that's the way it goes. These characters are only as temporary substandard until everybody gets together and has to save the world. Once and for all of the people involved. And even though that Final Fantasy VII actually starts out as a deal as where you have optional characters, but a few of them are not optional. And that consists of Sid Highwind. We're not exactly doing it in water here, but anyway. Kate Sith. And even though that Yuffie becomes a staple or a prominent character, she's not actually in the Final Fantasy VII original game as a prominent character that is all the way throughout the game. And neither is Vincent Valentine, I believe his name is. I can't remember his full name. But anyway, Vincent, I do know his name is Vincent for sure. And anyway, he actually becomes a staple just like Yuffie. Even Nanaki's not optional. But there's only two game characters in this universe, and that's what's his name? Vincent and Yuffie. Doesn't matter which order you get them in. Never has been. You can actually wait till after you get Vincent. Go all the way back anytime you want to in the game and go get Yuffie. It's actually been proven. You can actually get Yuffie anytime. Sephiroth is also an optional character that you can actually get, but it's not that hard. It's not that easy to get him unless you have access to the safe room, I believe it's called, which you cannot get access to normally unless you use a Game Shark. Yeah, I know it's cheating, but hey, it's the only way to get to it. And even then, you have to know what the hell you're doing. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, otherwise I would have gotten Sephiroth myself. People have managed to do this, I have not. So you may not ever see me get Sephiroth until the day I actually figured out how to run the Game Shark where I can actually get him. But in any case, Sephiroth is not all that beneficial anyway. He would be like the 10th member anyway, optionally. But he's actually a permanent staple in the franchise universe, depending on what game you're playing. He doesn't appear in any games that does not involve Cloud. Like Kingdom Hearts, he's appeared in. He's appeared in Advent Children. For some reason or another, they have to keep bringing him back, even for, all the Kingdom Hearts games. Crazy to think that, but yes, this is what they do. A villain that they keep killing on and off, on and off, on and off. They've even brought him back for Disodia. And you can actually have him as a good guy, but you can also fight him, which makes no sense. But that's the same thing with this game, in particular. Now, there's no guarantee that the true remake will be that way, because in the true remake, unfortunately, if you ever pay attention to the trailers, Sephiroth is only a phantom, or somewhere in his memories, just like the game. But he's haunting him. In this game, he doesn't really haunt him until a certain point in the game. So really, and we will go over that later. But I'm just saying, with the fact of the Final Fantasy VII universe, what we had to look forward to are weapons originally. And they're going to take out all the weapons. I mean, all of them. They're not even going to leave not one weapon. Ow. Ow, my head. So anyway, Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorite games. I wouldn't say Final Fantasy VIII is a favorite, but I do happen to have the song on there that they play eventually. It's one of my favorites. I wouldn't even say that Sephiroth's theme, is one of my favorites, but it's up there. I like it. It's pretty cool. Actually, I like all the songs in there. But it's not a favorite, except for, even though this is only a theme song, Those Who Fight Further. And when Final Fantasy VIII came out, and I started playing that game later on after it came out, I wasn't a fan of the theme music, but I still liked it. I wasn't too particularly. I mean, I get that this is Final Fantasy VIII. It'd be like if you put like Final Fantasy VII music, which actually would make sense to me because I'm the one playing the game. But it depends on how much you're used to it and everything, I suppose, or whether or not you want to listen to the original. And don't get me wrong, it's not bad or anything like that. It just doesn't seem to be as upbeat enough for you to go like, yeah, I want to fight this battle because I gotta do this. That's what fight. Those Who Fight Further was the thing about. Those Who Fight Further actually represented that. And without Those Who Fight Further, it's just not a thing. Anyway, I'm just going to pause this and I'll be right back. Now, there's somebody who just popped up we don't know anything about either. A lot of these people in here are dead. Few of them survive. But apparently not everybody. There's a guy with looks like a white hat shift that's standing in the doorway. He just popped up. Anyway, Final Fantasy VII, I gotta say, I have beaten that 100%. And then there's Final Fantasy VI, which was first originally released as Final Fantasy III. which is not the true Final Fantasy 3. The true Final Fantasy 3, unfortunately, at the time, was released in Japan long before it was released into America. You see, in America, we had so many few games and whatnot. We had Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 2, we had 3, which actually was, and we did not know that. We were confused. I guarantee you, you would be confused if you'd have been playing for so many years and to come to find out that Final Fantasy 3, the original Final Fantasy 3, is not what you think it is. It's actually Final Fantasy 6. Even though that they released it as 3, they put the title as 3. That's not it. If I remember correctly, it's on Nintendo DS or whatever. I got my first hands on it later on, not when it first came out or anything like that. Even when it was in Japan, I actually had the unfortunate of not even knowing or experiencing the real Final Fantasy 3. I actually thought for the longest time, like anybody else who's been living in America who doesn't know anything about Japan. Anyway, other than what we get from them. And that's it. That Final Fantasy 3 was Final Fantasy 3 and not Final Fantasy 6, the one that we got, even though it was actually. Then you wonder why years later I started looking up what's the real Final Fantasy 6. Well, the real Final Fantasy 6 is about the same, only you get more cutscenes when you play it on the the PlayStation. See, whereas there might have been a cutscene, but it wasn't as big a deal as PlayStation had it. When PlayStation had it, they brought out the cutscenes, that were more of a bigger deal. And I mean, these cutscenes are awesomer, and they were more brought out for like Nintendo GameCube and stuff like that when they really did like Final Fantasy IV with voices and stuff like that. I forget which one actually had it first, but it doesn't matter. They have remade the game so many times, but they've made a lot of it look the same. There's only quite a few differences in the game. Like, they're about cut-off dialogues, some monster fights don't exist. Like, instead of having 2, you only have 1 when you're with as a Cecil or Cecil. I don't know, there never really was a real pronunciation for him. Anyway, on the ship of the Red Wings, when you're still as the Dark Knight, I played it, that's how I know. It kind of sucks, but at least it has voices, so you can't complain too much there. Whereas any other version actually has, as normally, when you play the game, you got 2 fights. And it plays on its own automatically. But the one game that I played had me doing it manually. So I was like, what the hell? So anyway, see, now there's another character we'll never even know anything about, because Barrett had a wife. You would have never known that if you had never paid attention to this game. Because if you look at Crisis Core, Barrett's not even in it. Who the hell is Barrett? Who the hell is Cloud? See, Cloud is a thing in Crisis Core, but he's not much of a deal until he gets one reference when he's actually being introduced to the game. And that's like, even though the main character of that game is Zack Waters. A character, I think is his name, Zack Waters. I don't remember, that's his last name. I just know for a fact. No, Zack, I don't know. Some people say Fanfare, some people say Waters, but anyway. Zack is a character that, unfortunately, ultimately dies. And see, with Zach is a sad, tragic story. And apparently he was Ares's, and I will say Ares because it's true, it's not Aerith. See, Ares actually had 2 original names, believe it or not. People keep wanting to say, no, it's Aerith, it's Aerith. No, it's not Aerith, it's Ares. But either way, and nothing to do with the God of War. You know that God of War was never always had the name Ares. And true folklore legend, believe it or not, the God of War was never always named Ares. The God of War was either named Ares or some other name. It was never mainly that name. So, you got your facts wrong. Even I got it wrong. Even I always thought his name was that. But then I never thought about it when I thought about Ares Gainsborough. I never thought about that. I really didn't. As a matter of fact, I played that game before I even knew about God of War. The God of War. And when you think about it, it's true. Do you really need the God of War to be named Ares? What if you called him Aerith? What are you going to do then? Jeez. People are so hard up and stuck up on the whole idea that they shouldn't be naming her Ares. That's just stupid. And that's another reason why I'm not so sure I want to play the true remake, because they're changing her name to Aerith instead of Ares. A lot of it's the same, but they're changing the name to Aerith because a lot of people bitch and moaned because, oh, well, it's a reference to the God of War. Let me tell you something about the God of War that you people think you know, but you obviously don't know. He's not just Ares. He's gone by many names throughout the history. And whether or not today, we still don't know if he actually exists or not. We don't even know, because there's no evidence to prove or suggest that the God of War even exists, let alone that his name was Ares. All we know is that the true folklore legend that he was not actually just Ares. He's gone by many names. Believe it or not. Y'all need to do your research more, because I mean, it's just stuck living in the past, believing in some old ancient belief that's so far beyond proven to be bullshit. Even I believe the same freaking lie. Yeah, it's a freaking lie. His name was only Ares. It's only Ares. It's not. Stop that bullshit. Stop it before I kick your ass! Anyway. So. Ares actually does have powers. But she doesn't have as much as her ancient ones. And she's the last of her kind. And speaking of last of her kind, Barrett never had a child. At least not in the game universe. He might have had it in the comics or whatever, some fan universe or whatever, where he finally does have or settles down and has a baby. But, see, with Barrett, sorry, I heard some noise out there. Anyway, with Barrett, his only child isn't his own. It's not even really his daughter. He actually just winds up inheriting the daughter. As you already know that. Because Dine is actually Marlene's real father. And I forget what her mother's name is. And obviously, I guess the village headman dies. So anyway, I think her name was Ellen or something. I don't remember. I gotta say, that's pretty messed up with that town. Well, not until now he says he's said anything. Yeah, they sure do. See, this is why they wanted to get rid of Shinra, because of those terrible things they do that makes everyone miserable. So I'm about ready to spoil something for you. Scarlet is her name. The woman with the red dress that we saw in the past there. Yeah. Also, she dies. We don't know that till Advent Children. So if you don't care, then there's your spoiler. If you do care, forget I ever said that. Pretend like you never heard that, because enough to want to watch Advent Children. Because see, Advent Children was one of the greatest movies I ever saw. It was actually way better than The Spirits Within. The Spirits Within sucked monkey balls. I was like, what the hell is this crap? See, with The Spirits Within, they made a movie like it was going to continue on, and it never did. At least with Advent Children, it didn't continue on. It had no need to. It was in the movie. That was it. Boom. It was done. It wasn't just that. Anyway. So, So what you see, Advent Children was way better. And I gotta say, I liked it. Spirits Within sucked. And everybody agrees. Even I saw it and I was like, what the hell is this crap? When you first watch, you're like, okay. It's getting good so far and everything. Then it starts getting to be to the point, what the hell is up with all this crap? Oh, by the way, I need to be kissed now, and then we'll fuck later. I don't mean to be nasty and everything, but that movie, it was just like so stupid. And literally, that's exactly what happened. It's like, really? So you'll screw later? Never have I ever seen a Final Fantasy like that in my entire life. Unless, of course, you read the damn books. In the game, or games, there are some people where they will kiss. But it's not until, you get, a deal where they're obviously doing something, with 3D scenes with, the after years of Final Fantasy IV when they finally kiss. Whereas, in the actual game, Rosa and Cecil never actually kiss. They only hug. And so do Tifa and Cloud. They never actually kiss. Until sometime later, and then they might kiss. And as a matter of fact, somehow or another, she gets a ring. Even though that they're separate. See, although I may have liked Advent Children, still kind of didn't make still sense story-wise, like, because it's not really, if you actually consider it like a sequel to the game, that's technically not with all the dialogue. So yeah. All right, I'll meet you at the. We'll just do this now. Okay, so as you can tell, we were at Rope Station, and I have saved. I have used means that I do not care to particularly talk about to do this because I have no GP, which is gold source or gold pieces, I guess. I have no idea. Anyway, I'm going to cut it off here, and I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.